You know, it's a strange thing how a man can spend his whole life chasing something he cannot name. It could be a bottle, a lover, a tune he plays again and again, or even the restless urge to wander. But behind every chase, behind every compulsion, there's a whisper, something calling from deep within the bones. And I suspect that whisper might very well be God, not the God of thunder and commandments, but the one who hides in the quiet ache of your longing, the one who does not shout from the heavens, but murmurs through your emptiness. You see, most people think of addiction as a weakness, but I say it is a form of prayer that has forgotten its direction. You do not look out there for God, something in the sky, you look within. Now, before you take me too literally, I don't mean that every craving is holy in itself. Oh no, but every craving, every restless itch of the soul is a distorted echo of something sacred. Because the truth is, every human being is haunted by a deep sense of incompleteness. We're born into this world as fragments, and we spend our lives trying to remember what it is we once were, whole, complete, one with everything. And so we search. We search in books, in temples, in pleasures, in people. We grasp, we cling, we repeat the same old patterns again and again, like waves beating against the shore. Why? Because somewhere within, we remember. We remember that once, perhaps before birth, or beyond time, there was a great stillness, a unity, and now the soul aches to return to it. But we've forgotten the road home. So we build substitutes, we drink the wine not for its taste, but for the warmth it gives to a cold heart. We chase sensations not for the joy itself, but for the fleeting moment when we forget ourselves. And for a moment, just a moment, the walls crumble. And in that instant of oblivion, we touch something that feels divine. But the tragedy, my dear friend, is that we try to repeat it. We think the doorway lies in the substance, the ritual, the experience itself, not realizing it was always within us. Like a man who mistakes the moon for the reflection in the water, we dive after the shimmer and drown in illusion. You see, every form of addiction is an attempt to escape the unbearable feeling of being separate from life, from love, from the divine. But separation itself is an illusion. We were never apart from the whole. We merely believed we were. We suffer only because we take seriously what the gods made for fun. And isn't that what happens? We take the play of desire and make it into a tragedy. We cling to the fleeting moment and call it salvation. But the divine, you see, cannot be contained in a bottle or a moment or a person. It is far too vast, far too wild for that. Imagine for a moment a drop of water longing to be part of the sea. It forgets that it is the sea, and so it tries to merge with it through storms and rivers and rains, not realizing that it was never separate to begin with. That is the plight of the soul. And addiction in all its forms is the storm we create in our longing to return. Yet, I don't say this to condemn the addict. Oh no. In fact, I believe such souls are often the most sensitive, the most awake to the ache of existence. They are the ones who have felt the divine absence so profoundly that they will do anything to feel whole again. In their desperation lies a strange kind of grace. Because you see, God often speaks to us not in words, but in wounds. Not through sermons, but through the places where we break. And perhaps, just perhaps, addiction is not a curse, but a misunderstood calling, a cry from the soul that says, there is more to you than this small, frightened self you cling to. When you get the message, you hang up the phone. The problem is, we never hang up. We keep dialing the same number, chasing the same fleeting ecstasy, hoping the next time it will last. But the message was never in the substance, it was in the silence that followed. The silence that says, this isn't it, but you are close. So as we begin this exploration together, I want you to see addiction not as a failure, but as a clue, a divine breadcrumb leading you back to the source. Because what you truly seek is not pleasure or escape or control. What you seek is union, wholeness, God, and the miracle is you've never been apart from it. You know, I once said, trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. And in a way, addiction is just that, the soul trying to taste itself. We live in a world where everyone is hungry, though few can name what for, a hunger not of the stomach, but of the spirit. The kind that keeps a man restless even when he has everything he thought he wanted. It is that peculiar ache you feel in quiet moments when the laughter fades, when the wine runs dry, when even success tastes like dust. That's not failure, my dear. That's the soul remembering something it once knew. Now, to understand addiction, we must first understand desire. Desire in itself is not wrong. It is life's very motion. The flower desires to bloom. The bird desires to fly. The tide desires to return. Everything that exists is an expression of desire. Even the stars are born out of longing, the great yearning of the universe to see itself in countless forms. But when desire forgets its source, it becomes hunger without nourishment. It becomes addiction. You see, we confuse the object of desire with its essence. We think the cup will satisfy the thirst, not realizing the thirst was never for the liquid, but for the experience of being alive. We think love is found in another person, when in truth, it is the recognition of the divine in ourselves, mirrored through them. And so, addiction is not a love for the wrong thing, it is love misdirected. A sacred yearning pointed at the wrong star. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so simple, and yet everybody rushes around in a great panic, as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. This panic, this grasping, is the seed of addiction. It's as if we've been hypnotized to believe that fulfillment lies just over the next hill. One more drink, one more thrill, one more achievement, one more prayer, and then we'll be whole. But each time we arrive, we find ourselves still hollow, still searching, and so the pattern repeats. We keep circling the same tree, mistaking the shadow for the fruit. We call it failure, we call it sin, but what it truly is forgetfulness. We have forgotten that what we seek is not in the thing itself, but in the state of unity it once gave us a glimpse of. Think of a man who stands by the sea at sunset, feeling that strange peace that comes when all thinking stops. In that moment, he and the world are not two. There is no watcher, only watching. That right there is what the addict chases. Not the substance, not the sensation, but that brief disappearance of self, that return to the eternal now. But alas, the addict doesn't know that what he seeks is already here. He believes it must be caused by something, a drink, a ritual, a prayer, a person. He does not realize the cause and the effect are both illusions. For the joy he felt was never in the drink, it was in the dissolving of boundaries that the drink allowed for a moment. When the mind stops grasping, even for a second, you feel what sages call bliss. But because we think bliss is something to be earned or consumed, we keep trying to reproduce it through external means. That's why I say the tragedy of addiction is not in the craving, but in the misunderstanding of what it craves. Addiction, you see, is the longing of the divine to return to itself, misread as the longing of the human for satisfaction. It's God searching for God, wearing a disguise, the infinite pretending to be finite, trying to remember what it already knows. You are something the whole universe is doing, in the same way that a wave is something the whole ocean is doing. And so, when you feel that burning need, that restless hunger, do not despise it. It is not your enemy. It is the oldest prayer in the world, the prayer of the cosmos to remember itself through you, to become conscious of its own dance. But if you chase the wave instead of the ocean, you will always be thirsty. The answer, you see, is not to destroy desire, but to understand it, to follow it to its source, to realize that beneath every craving is the call to come home, to return to the stillness that was never lost. When you understand this, addiction becomes not a curse, but a compass, a reminder of where you've forgotten to look, because the divine is not absent, it's just hiding behind the masks of your desires, waiting for you to recognize its face. And perhaps then, when the hunger arises again, you'll smile, for you'll know it's not a demand to be filled, but an invitation to awaken. You know, there's a curious irony in the way we live. We spend half our lives trying to control everything, our minds, our bodies, our image, our future, and the other half surrendering to things that control us, a bottle, a habit, a thought that won't let go, and we call that freedom. But have you noticed? The harder you try to hold on to life, the faster it slips through your fingers. Like sand, the tighter the grip, the less remains. And perhaps this is where addiction becomes such a fascinating teacher, because in it you can see the whole tragedy of the human condition. We want to surrender, but on our terms. We want to let go, but only when it's safe. We want to dissolve, but without disappearing. And so we find substitutes, a glass of wine, a lover's arms, an endless rhythm of repetition, all the little rituals by which the self tries to forget itself. For a moment they work, for a fleeting moment the walls melt. And in that melting we taste God, or at least something like him. The addict and the monk are not so different. Both are searching for the disappearance of self. The monk goes to the mountain to lose himself in meditation. The addict goes to the bottle to lose himself in intoxication. The direction is different, but the impulse is the same, to escape the narrowness of I, to dissolve into something vast and boundless. The problem is not the desire, it's the direction. Because the monk learns that you cannot reach infinity by grasping. But the addict believes you can drink it, smoke it, or repeat it into existence. He's looking for eternity in what's temporary. He's reaching for the ocean through a drop. And yet, can we blame him? After all, haven't we all done the same? We chase experiences, identities, beliefs, and call them meaning. We chase order and control and call it peace. But peace isn't found in control, it's found in the surrender that requires no control. You see, when you take a drug, or when you bury yourself in a habit, what you are really saying is, I want to escape the prison of myself. But instead of breaking the bars, you build another cage, prettier, softer, more intoxicating, but still a cage. And what's more tragic is that you call it freedom. To be free from the desire for an answer is to be free from the problem, because it's not the substance nor the act that binds you, it's the search for certainty. It's the longing for something final, something fixed, something that will stay. But life, you see, is not meant to stay. It's a dance, not a sculpture. And the moment you try to preserve the dance, it dies. Addiction is the attempt to bottle the infinite. And that's why it always leaks. You cannot imprison the divine within a moment, because the divine is the movement itself. The ecstasy you felt was never the wine, it was the vanishing of boundaries, it was the instant when you were gone and only being remained. But of course we forget, and so we chase the echo instead of the song. We chase the footprint instead of the traveler, and every time the same pattern repeats. The pleasure peaks, fades, and leaves behind that hollow ache in your chest. That silence, my friend, that's where God speaks. He doesn't shout through the pleasure, he whispers through the absence of it. He hides in the stillness after the music stops. That emptiness you fear so much, that's not punishment. It's the divine saying, this isn't it, my child, but you are close. If only we had the courage to sit in that silence, to not rush to fill it again, we would find the doorway we've been searching for all along. That silence terrifies us, doesn't it? It feels like death. And in a sense, it's the death of everything you've mistaken for yourself. That's why the addict fears stillness, because stillness shows him what's real. Yet paradoxically, stillness is the only place where the real can be found. That's the divine joke. We spend our lives running from the silence that could save us. You see, true awakening doesn't destroy desire, it transforms it. The fire doesn't go out, it changes color. It becomes a longing not for escape, but for understanding. Not for numbness, but for awareness. Not for disappearance, but for union. The monk and the addict both seek the same disappearance, but one dissolves into life, while the other dissolves away from it. And the moment you realize this difference, you begin to understand that even your most misguided paths were never wasted. They were just roads you took while learning how to walk home. The more you struggle to live, the less you live. Give up the notion that you must be sure of what you are doing. So perhaps the next time the craving comes, don't condemn it, don't obey it, just listen. Because maybe, just maybe, that's not temptation at all. That's God clearing his throat, waiting for you to hear him in the silence between your thoughts. You know, there's a silence that follows every storm, a kind of still ache that lingers after all the thunder has gone. It's in that silence, I think, that God speaks most clearly, not in the words of prophets, nor in the hymns of temples, but in the trembling quiet after your own collapse. We don't often recognize it because we expect divinity to arrive with light and angels, not with heartbreak and withdrawal. But perhaps that's precisely how the divine works, not through comfort, but through the breaking open of what you thought you were. God doesn't always speak in words. Sometimes he speaks in withdrawals, in longing, in tears. There comes a moment, somewhere after the pleasure fades, when everything goes still, and suddenly the thing that once promised escape becomes a mirror reflecting your own face. The wine stops working, the passion turns to ash, and you are left staring at the emptiness that remains. Most call this despair, but it is not despair, it is revelation. The soul has brought you here to show you something. It's saying, look, you have chased the shadow long enough. Now see what casts it. And oh, what a moment that is. Terrifying, yes, because it strips you bare, but sacred too, because beneath that bareness lies truth. The moment you realize, I was never seeking the substance, I was seeking myself. You see, every descent carries within it an initiation. Every collapse is a secret doorway. You had to lose yourself, not as punishment, but as proof that you can't truly be lost. What you think you are, your stories, your habits, your cravings, those are only garments the soul tries on for a while. When they fall away, what remains is what you've always been. You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at and exploring itself. Pain, loss, obsession, these are not random cruelties. They are the divine's strange way of getting your attention. When joy becomes too loud, we forget to listen. When everything seems certain, we forget to look inward. So life in its infinite compassion shakes us. It sends us storms not to destroy us, but to awaken us. That is why the old mystics said, suffering purifies the false self. It cracks the shell of illusion, so that the light can enter, like a seed that must split before it grows. The soul must be broken open before it can bloom. If you never felt the ache of longing, you would never seek what's real. And so in those long nights of withdrawal, whether from a substance, a person, or a dream, something holy is happening. Something vast and invisible is being born inside you. It doesn't look like enlightenment. It doesn't feel like grace, but it is. Because grace is not always gentle. Sometimes grace is the fire that burns down everything false. Sometimes grace is the emptiness that makes room for what's true. You see, God is not up there judging your sins. He's within you, crying through them. Every fall is his invitation to rise higher. It's a strange thing to say, but the divine feels through you. When you weep, he weeps. When you wander, he wanders. He is not the spectator of your suffering. He is the presence within it. He hides himself inside your loneliness so that you might finally notice the one thing that never leaves. And when you stop seeing your pain as shame, when you begin to see it as guidance, the whole world shifts. You realize that your wounds were not scars of failure, but fingerprints of transformation. They marked the places where the old self dissolved and the new one began. So, my friend, if you are hurting, if you are tired of falling, if you feel lost, don't rush to escape it. Sit with it just for a moment. Listen, there's a whisper beneath the pain. It does not condemn you. It does not demand perfection. It simply says, I am still here. That whisper is the voice of your own soul, and it is the same voice that spoke the universe into being. So, you see, even in your darkest moments, you have never been abandoned. You have been spoken to. You have been called, not punished, called to remember what you are. The more a thing tends to be permanent, the more it tends to be lifeless. To live fully is to be always in danger. And so suffering is not the enemy of life, it is its secret ally. It keeps breaking us open until we are wide enough for love to enter, until the divine no longer needs to whisper because we've become quiet enough to hear. You know, there comes a time in every seeker's journey when the running simply stops. Not because they've reached the end of the road, but because they've realized the road was always circling back home. And when that moment arrives, that quiet dawning, something magnificent happens. You look at the very thing that once destroyed you, and you see it for what it truly was, your greatest teacher. You don't heal by fighting the darkness. You heal by turning toward the light it was pointing to. Once you begin to see the divine message hidden in your craving, the addiction loses its power, because you see, addiction feeds on misunderstanding. It lives on the belief that you are incomplete. But the moment you see through the illusion that you were never broken to begin with, the whole machinery begins to crumble. It's rather like waking from a long dream. For years you thought the monsters were real. You fought them, feared them, even worshipped them. But then suddenly the dream lifts and you realize the monsters were never outside you. They were shadows cast by your own light. That is awakening. When you discover that even your darkness was holy, that your pain was sacred, you stop struggling against life. You begin to flow with it. And that flow, my friend, is freedom. To have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you'll sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. Freedom, you see, is not abstaining from pleasure. It is realizing that no pleasure can contain the infinite. It is knowing that joy was never in the wine, nor in the kiss, nor in the fleeting triumphs of this world. It was in being aware of them. It was in the witnessing itself. The soul delights not in possession, but in participation. And so what once bound you now becomes your invitation. The craving that once dragged you into shadow now points toward the light. Because all addiction, when understood, transforms into devotion. Devotion to truth, to awareness, to the divine pulse of life itself. This is what the mystics called the sacred return. It is not about becoming pure or perfect. It is about remembering that you were never apart from what you sought. The journey of the addict, if walked consciously, becomes an initiation, the death of the false self, the birth of the real one. You see, every fall, every failure, every desperate grasping was chiseling away at what you are not, so that what you truly are could finally emerge. And so the very thing that once destroyed you becomes your teacher, your doorway back to God. Imagine, if you will, a man emerging from a long night of storm and rain. He steps out into the dawn, and the first rays of light touch his face. For the first time, he feels warmth not as comfort, but as truth. He realizes the light was never gone. He had merely closed his eyes. That is what awakening feels like. It is not the gaining of something new, but the gentle removal of what was false. And when the soul remembers its origin, the addiction becomes unnecessary. Because how could you crave what you already are? How could you seek completion when you realize you are the whole thing? The dreamer and the dream, the seeker and the sought, the ocean and the wave. In that realization, a great laughter arises, the cosmic laughter of release, not mockery, not pride, but the laughter of one who has finally understood the game. You see, God hides himself in all these disguises, pleasure, pain, hunger, loss, just so that he can play the joy of being found again. And when you recognize him, he laughs through you. This is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now. And instead of calling it work, realize it is play. Life, you realize, was never a problem to be solved. It was a song to be heard, and even the dissonant notes were part of its beauty. The soul emerging from addiction is like dawn after the longest night. There's no longer a battle between dark and light, only understanding that both were needed for the sunrise to exist. You see, awakening isn't about escaping the world, it's about seeing through it. It's realizing that even your struggles were movements of the divine, shaping you, humbling you, preparing you to remember what you've always been. And when that remembering happens, when the light touches your face, the search ends, not because there's nothing left to find, but because you realize at last you were never searching at all. You know, after all the storms, all the searching, all the desperate reaching, there comes a moment when everything grows very quiet. The craving stops, the questions fade, and in that stillness, something vast begins to breathe through you. Perhaps this quiet, unremarkable moment was what you were looking for all along. Perhaps God's voice isn't in the thunder or the temple, but in the ache of your own heart. In every desire, every addiction, every mistake, something sacred was trying to reach you. We spend so much of our lives waiting for divine revelation, a miracle, a vision, a light tearing open the sky, when all along the divine was whispering through our most human moments, through the trembling hand reaching for another drink, through the lonely silence of regret, through the sudden laughter that erupts from nowhere. It was all him, always him. The universe, you see, doesn't separate the sacred from the profane. It only plays both sides of the same song. Your falls, your cravings, your heartbreaks, these were not detours. They were the dance itself. Because God, my dear friend, is not interested in your perfection. He's interested in your participation, in your willingness to feel deeply, to break, to return. You see, when the divine wants your attention, he doesn't always bless you with peace. Sometimes he disturbs you. Yes, sometimes he takes away your certainties, your comforts, your illusions, not to punish you, but to call you. He shakes the ground beneath your feet, so that you might remember the sky above your head. He turns your pleasures hollow so that you might listen for what's eternal, until you finally stop running and listen. And when you do, when you finally surrender to that listening, something miraculous happens. You realize he was never far away, never lost, never hiding. The God you sought through your addictions was the silence watching them all along. He was there when you first reached out for escape. He was there when you thought you'd fallen too far. He was there when you wept and whispered, "I can't do this anymore," and he's here now, breathing through your very awareness, smiling through your understanding. You are the universe experiencing itself in the infinite play of being and non-being. You see, the game was never about escaping your humanity. It was about remembering that even in your most human moments, you were divine. Every craving was an echo of the original longing, the longing of the infinite to know itself through you. And so addiction, when seen with awakened eyes, is not a fall from grace. It's the long way home. It's the divine choosing to walk through darkness just to rediscover the light. It's God wearing your face, asking through your pain, "Will you remember me now?" And when you do, when you finally remember, the whole world seems to exhale. The war within you dissolves. There is no addict, no saint, no sinner, only the dance of one consciousness, endlessly exploring itself. What you thought was broken was only opening. What you thought was punishment was preparation. And what you thought was God's absence was his most intimate disguise. So now, my friend, if you have heard something tonight, not with your ears, but with your being, then the purpose of your pain has already been fulfilled. For the truth was never in the lesson, but in the seeing, and you have seen. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so simple, yet everyone rushes about in a great panic, as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. So rest, not as one who has escaped, but as one who has arrived. The divine has been speaking to you all along through your craving, your confusion, your collapse, your awakening. And now in this silence, he smiles, because at last you've remembered you were never apart from him. You were his voice, calling yourself home.